In this section, we're going to look at genetic crosses in details. Some characteristics are controlled by a single gene, for example, fur color in mice, red-green color blindness. Each gene comes in different forms called alleles. However, most characteristics are a result of multiple genes interacting each other. Here we're going to look at the Punnett square in details. This can be used to perform a genetic cross to work out the probability of a certain allele being passed on. A genetic cross is when you consider the potential offspring that might result from two known parents. We are going to look at in details now. In Punnett square, if you look at this, Bob is confused. He needs your help. Bob has blue eyes. Both of his parents have brown eyes. How can Bob have blue eyes? Let's pause the video and try to answer this question. Here we go through some definitions of homozygous, heterozygous, genotype, and phenotype. Homozygous, an individual with two identical alleles for a characteristic, for example, capital B and capital B, or small b and small b. Here, brown color is the homozygous. Or blue eyes is the homozygous, small b and small b. Heterozygous, an individual with different alleles for a characteristic, capital B and small b. Here, the brown color is the heterozygous. Genotype, this describes the alleles present or genetic makeup of an individual regarding a particular characteristic. For example, the letters capital B, small b, or small b, small b. Phenotype, this describes the physical appearance of an individual regarding a particular characteristics. For example, it could be the color. For example, if I say brown color, blue color, or brown eyes or blue eyes, or black fur or brown fur. Here we're going to look at Bob's parents had as allele for eye colors. Bob's dad brown color of eyes and Bob's mom brown eyes. Let's have a look. If we do the Punnett square of Bob's mom and Bob's dad, look at that. All of them are homozygous dominant. We can consider that homozygous dominant, all of them capital B, or we can change now to here mom has got one recessive allele, so the capital B and small b, or we can change that to Bob's dad small b, or we can change Bob, mom and dad, both of them small b's and capital B's, or we can change that to Bob dad both small b, but Bob mom capital B and small b, or four of them can be recessive small b. Here if we do the cross section of brown color eye and the blue color eye, in the Punnett square, this capital letter, small letter, these are the genotype, and the phenotype is the brown and the blue color. Let's do the Punnett square. This is genotype, the color is the phenotype. Now what we have here, if we cross section between these two, we can see the first one in the first box, capital B, small b. Second box on the right top is small b and small b. And to the bottom, we have capital B, small b, and small b and small b. Now, can you come up with a definition of genotype and phenotype, what we have discussed before? Pause the video and try it. You have some questions to answer here. Question 1 to 4. Give a brief outline of how to use a Punnett square to perform genetic crosses. What does homozygous dominant mean? What does homozygous recessive mean? What does heterozygous mean? And you have 2 extension questions to answer. Let's pause the video and try it now. Here are the answers for you. Now check your answer. If it's wrong, do the corrections. Can you label the following on the Punnett square? Parental genotype, parental phenotype, offspring genotype, offspring phenotype. Pause the video and try it now. Using genetic diagrams. If we do the cross between capital A small a to capital A small a using Punnett squares, we can work out the proportion of the offspring of a genetic cross expected to have a particular genotype and phenotype. And we can get the ratio of one genotype to another. If you look at here, we can see the first box, both capital A and capital A. The percentage of this is 25%. Both of them capital, that's why this is homozygous dominant. Second one, capital A and small a. The percentage of this is 50%. This is heterozygous because it contains dominant and recessive both. And the last one is both recessive and both the same, that is homozygous recessive, small a and small a. The ratio of this is 1:2:1. So homozygous dominant to heterozygous to homozygous recessive. Here is a question for you. Let's pause the video and read the question. Now let's take a look. This is a 4 marks question. Seed colors in peas is controlled by a single gene which has 2 alleles. And the symbols represent capital A for the dominant and the small a for the recessive. So pear breeding plants grown from yellow seeds, both capital A, and green seeds, both small a. If we do the cross in between these two, the Punnett square will get this result. So capital A and a small a, that will be 100% heterozygous, and the color will be all yellow seeds because you have the dominant allele there. From the genetic tree, if you get in second generation, if we cross in between capital A small a and both small a, we'll get this result. So 50% capital A small a means dominant and 50% small a means recessive. So we'll get half yellow and half green seeds. So the ratio will be 1:1. This is a 4 marks question for you. This is a grade 7 to 9 question for you. That is a genetic tree. So the information is given for you. Let's pause the video and try to answer this question. What proportion of children A and B have freckles? Is it homozygous or heterozygous for freckles? Explain your answer. You can draw the Punnett square to get help, and explain why G cannot be homozygous for freckles. Let's try it now. Inherited disorder. Here are some diseases for you to find out which of these diseases are inherited. Pause the video and try to find out the inherited diseases. Let's check your answer. Cystic fibrosis, Huntington, sickle cell anemia, and polydactyly. These are the 4 inherited diseases are very common. Cystic fibrosis. This is a genetic disorder that affects many organs. It mainly affects our lungs, digestive system, reproductive system. When mucus made by cells in different areas of our body that become very fake and sticky, because of that fake and sticky mucus, different organs, for example the lungs, can become clogged up, and therefore this can stop our different organs work them properly. The pancreas cannot make or secrete enzymes properly because the tubes through which the enzymes are released into the small intestine are blocked with mucus. The reproductive system is also affected, so many people with cystic fibrosis are infertile. There are some treatments which includes the physiotherapy or antibiotics to help keep areas clear of mucus. Cystic fibrosis is caused by a recessive allele. I'm going to give you some information for the next slide. How cystic fibrosis is inherited? In order to answer these questions, you need to listen carefully the information. Cystic fibrosis is caused by a recessive allele, so it must be inherited from both parents. Children affected by cystic fibrosis are normally born to parents who do not suffer from the disorder. The parents have a dominant healthy allele, which means their bodies work normally. They don't have any issues. They don't have any cystic fibrosis. However, they also carry the recessive cystic fibrosis allele, which is called the carriers. In UK, 1 in 25 carriers the cystic fibrosis alleles. So again, 1 in 25 people carries the cystic fibrosis allele. Most of them will never be aware of it. The only situations when it may become obvious is if they have children with a partner who also carries the allele. While looking at the possibility of inheriting genetic disorder, it is important to remember that every time an egg and a sperm fuse together, it is down to chance which alleles combine. So if two parents who are heterozygous for the cystic fibrosis allele have 4 children, again the cystic fibrosis alleles of heterozygous alleles have 4 children, there is a 25% chance, means 1 in 4, that each child will have the disorder. In fact, all 4 children could have cystic fibrosis, or none of them might be affected. They might all be carrier, or none of them might inherit the faulty alleles at all. It's all down to chance. So we don't have any control of this. We cannot determine that. It is all to chance. Now let's pause the video and try to answer these questions here. Polydactyly. Sometimes babies are born with extra fingers and toes. This is called polydactyly. The most common form of polydactyly is caused by a dominant allele. This can be inherited from one parent who has the condition. People often remove their extra digit, and some people live quite happily with them. Now, if you have polydactyly and are heterozygous, there is a 50% chance of passing this disorder to your children. If you have homozygous allele, your children will definitely have the condition. Some dominant genetic disorders have a much more widespread effect on the way the body works. For example, Huntington disease. This is caused by dominant genetic allele. The symptoms develop in middle age. It affects the nervous system and finally leads to death. polydactyly is caused by a dominant allele. Here is a scenario. Paul's dad has polydactyly, but his mom doesn't. Paul himself has polydactyly, but his wife doesn't. Now draw a Punnett square to determine the possible genotypes of the offspring. Remember, polydactyly is caused by a dominant allele, that is the capital letter. Here are some true and false questions for you. 1 to 5, pause the video and try yourself. Cystic fibrosis is a recessive disorder. This is true. Embryo screening can cause miscarriage. That is true. IVF is an integral part of embryo screening. That is true. In a family tree, a square represents a male. True. A gene is a length of DNA that codes for a particular carbohydrate. That is false. That codes for a particular protein. Sex determination. Human, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. For 22 of those pairs have the similar shape. One pair of chromosomes is different. These are the sex chromosomes, and they determine the gender of the offspring. Males are X and Y, and females are X and X. How is gender determined? The female possesses only X and X chromosomes, and the male possesses X and Y chromosomes. Therefore, the 50% chance of having a baby boy and 50% chance of having a baby girl means 50% of the sperm produced have an X chromosome and 50% have a Y chromosome. So the ratio is 1 to 1. Now if you look at this, cell in testis and cell in ovary, X and Y in testis and X and S in ovary, if you separate the gametes, you can see X and Y and X and X. Now, pause the video and try to answer this question. What do these percentage mean for the expected ratio of men to women in the world? Can you use the Punnett square to work it out? Let's take a look now. So you can see that 50% are X and 50% are Y. However, in the egg is 100% are X. Pause the video and fill in the blanks here. Now you can see if we do the Punnett square of female gametes and the male gamete, you can see that the first box, both X and X, then you have X and Y, then you have both X and X, and then you have X and Y. So the ratio is 50 to 50, means 1 to 1. Now draw a Punnett square and explain why half of all babies born across the world are boys and half of them are girls. Here's a challenge for you. Read the question and try yourself. You need to find out the genotypes and you need to draw the genetic cross. And at the same time, you need to find out what would be the genotype and phenotype. Good luck.